Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. If you are a new listener to the podcast, I want to say welcome. I'm glad you stumbled your way into this podcast. And if you are a returning listener, I want to say thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate every single one of you. So if you're new to this podcast, this is a full-time yoga teacher podcast where I interview full-time yoga teachers from across the world to kind of highlight how uniquely and creatively full-time yoga teachers create their career to make it work, to be able to make their passion and love into their career. I am a full-time yoga teacher myself, and when I was a newer full-time yoga teacher, I was very curious to find out how other teachers were doing it. How are they making it possible? So that's kind of how I decided to start this podcast, to highlight and share the beautiful story and journey and some challenges of full-time yoga teachers on this podcast. So I hope you're enjoying all the interviews I get to share on this podcast. This week, we are starting a mini-series on anatomy and why it's so important for yoga teachers to learn anatomy. And this mini-series is a conversation between Olga and I. And Olga is a returning guest on this podcast. Olga and I met in anatomy training called 3 Physio Yoga Training. And although we only met online, we have been in touch and we really connected through a lot of the conversations and chatting that we got to have. What's really cool about Olga is a full-time van life yoga teacher. She travels around Europe with her partner in her beautiful van, and she teaches yoga, private yoga, and she does pre-recorded yoga content on her website. And that's kind of her business, is online private yoga as well as offering online classes on her website. So definitely go check out the interview I did with Olga last year where she shares her journey of being a full-time van life yoga teacher. I think it's so cool. So go check that out. We also did a 3-part mini-series on creative sequencing earlier this year as well. So I'll put all the links to the previous interviews and conversation with Olga as well as how you can reach Olga on the show notes. So go check that out. Before we get started, I do want to share a little bit about my online yoga studio. I don't talk too much about my online yoga studio on my podcast, but I do have an online yoga studio. I've been teaching my online yoga studio for almost 5 years now. I started during the pandemic and it's still going strong. I teach online live Zoom classes 4 times a week, and all the classes are recorded and uploaded onto my on-demand library, where now I have hundreds and hundreds of yoga classes on my website. So it's a beautiful community of students from all over the world and different time zones who get to come join me and take online yoga classes with me. Many of them take live Zoom classes with me. Some people cannot attend the live classes, so they get access to these hundreds of recorded classes that I teach. And I teach mostly yoga, mostly vinyasa, but I do also teach yin and restorative, myofascial release and yoga class. I teach full moon and new moon gentle yoga class. I teach full body functional body fitness class that uses body weight, as well as a strength class where we use dumbbells in a workout. Besides all the movement classes, I also offer pranayama and meditation class once a month. And it's just a beautiful community of yoga students who come together to be in community and practice yoga together. So if you're looking for a welcoming online yoga community or convenient online yoga studio that you can just choose a recording from the library, click play, and be able to practice anytime, anywhere from the world, I highly recommend my online yoga studio. I am doing a special offer for new student. For the first 2 weeks, it's only $20. So I hope you give it a try. Come check out my online yoga studio. I would love to meet you. I would love to chat with you, especially if you are a podcast listener. I think that that will be a really beautiful way to kind of cultivate relationship, just because in podcasts it feels very one way. I'm just speaking out into the ether and hoping somebody's listening on the other side. It'll be really fun if listeners and you could come join my online yoga studio. I get to meet you in person and chat with you. I think that would be really fun. So I'll put the link to that $20 special for new students for 2 weeks. I would love to meet you. I would love to practice yoga with you. So that's all the announcement for today. I hope you enjoy the conversation I had with Olga, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome, Olga, to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm so excited to have you back on this show as another mini-series that we are going to be talking about. And the topic of this mini-series is anatomy and why it's so important for us yoga teachers to learn about anatomy. And I thought you would be the perfect guest for this mini-series. And before we start, for maybe the listeners who haven't listened to the previous episodes where you introduce yourself, maybe let the listeners know, who are you, where are you currently, and what do you do?
Yeah, so hi, I'm so happy to be here again. So my name is Olga and I am a yoga teacher. I'm a yoga therapeutic specialist based in Europe. So I'm originally from Scotland, but I travel in my van full time right now. So I'm speaking to you today from France, from the south of France.
How exciting. So I highly, highly recommend listeners to go listen to the first episode I brought her on, because I think it's so cool that you are a full-time yoga teacher from living in a van with your partner, teaching online private classes from your van, which is so cool. So definitely go check out that episode, as well as go check out Olga's Instagram for her van life. It's very, very beautiful. So let's start talking about the topic of this mini-series, anatomy. I want to hear a little bit about how was your anatomy training like in your 200-hour teacher training?
Yeah, so I did my 200-hour over 3 months, I think. And it was like an intensive that we came to do. So we had maybe 10 days of like intensive study, and then we would go away to all of our homework. The anatomy section was actually quite good, despite being quite short, because we had a yoga medicine teacher come to deliver the anatomy, and she was really good at making it quite applied to the human body. So again, despite it being quite short, for me, it created quite a good foundation. Also, it touched a little bit on things I knew from dance, from my training in dance beforehand. Yeah, so that was my experience. How was yours?
My experience, I thought, was also pretty good. I don't have like a huge memorable like teacher that came and did anatomy. My teacher training was a 1 month intensive, and it was with Yoga Works in LA. And we had one main teacher and assistant. And every day, so it was, since it was a intensive, we met every day, all day long, from Monday through Friday, and had Saturday and Sunday off. But every day in our curriculum, anatomy was part of the curriculum. So anatomy was weaved in throughout. Whereas sometimes I see at yoga teacher training where they just have anatomy for like one chunk of it, one weekend or one block of it, and that's it. Whereas in my training, it was weaved throughout the whole training, almost every day we met, which I thought was really good. And it was really applied practical anatomy for yoga teachers, which made it very interesting for me. And I was never into anatomy before I wanted to become a yoga teacher. I studied sociology for my undergrad and master's. I kind of wanted to stay away from all the sciences and biology. Definitely becoming a yoga teacher made me become super interested in anatomy, just because now it became very relatable and became really interesting, because what we do, if we're teaching movement and asana, anatomy is really important. It's part of it. So I do have, I think, positive experience from my 200-hour anatomy. Do I think it was enough? No, I don't think it was enough hours of anatomy, but I also understand within the 200-hour format, it's really hard to have so many hours of anatomy in it. I want to hear a little bit about, were you already interested in anatomy? Did you already have some kind of knowledge in anatomy before doing your 200-hour, because you were a dancer before?
Yeah, so I was always inclined towards science at school, unlike you. So I did higher biology. I'm not sure the American equivalent. I think it's SAT, maybe your high school exams. And did biology and math. So I was that person. At the same time, after school, I was always dancing in a youth company. So we did ballet, contemporary, jazz, all kinds of different dance styles. And so my interest in science kind of run a lot my interest in the moving body. And I always remember being quite interested in like actually what is the body doing in this movement that we're doing, in this stretch that we're doing, how to warm ourselves up, these kinds of things. And just generally like seeing like the anatomy in motion was always really fascinating for me. So I had this background before I came to my 200 hour, and I actually did my thesis in my bachelor's degree in dance about the external rotation of the hip joint. And that's something that I was interested in because I had issues with it myself.
What kind of issues with external rotation did you have that made you become interested in writing your research on that topic?
So in dance, there is a concept called turnout. That's quite important. When you go to see like a ballet performance in the theater, you'll often see that the ballet dancers basically all the time in classical ballet have externally rotated thighs the whole time. So similar to what we do in like a tree pose, you know, when the working leg is kind of open and externally rotated. So I was never as good at, air quotes, good at the turnout as a lot of other dancers were. And I always wondered why. And I would go to my teachers and ask, like, what can I do to make this better? Like, is this just me? Can I change this? And I wouldn't really get any answers from the dance teachers. And so I went digging in the internet and textbooks and things like that to actually understand like what is it that's stopping me from having better turnout. And I did come across a lot of yoga sources at the time actually that looked at like external rotation and how can we improve it. So that was sort of the inspiration to then write my thesis about basically anatomical variation in the hip joint.
So interesting and fascinating. I think I have a somewhat similar story of one of the reason I became really interested in anatomy after my 200-hour teacher training. I mean, first of all, it's because it became my job and I felt like I wanted to keep learning more about it and feel like I wanted to have more answers. And a lot of questions that I had was because I was pretty tight in my body compared to many typical yoga teachers and yoga teachers out there. I was one of the tightest one in the teacher training. And still to this day, amongst other teachers, I'm tighter than most yoga teachers out there. So I was so curious about like what muscles are tight? What range of motion do I need to improve? Why am I tighter than everybody else? And how can I be able to get flexible like somebody else? So I had a lot of questions about um, limitation and range of motion that I had. And I was so determined to find out what muscle was tight in my body and what muscle do I need to like focus and target to try to make it more flexible so that I could do certain poses or shape just because I felt not enough, not good. As a yoga teacher, I'm like, oh, if I can't do these poses or if I can't touch my toes or then I don't know if I can be a good yoga teacher. So there was a lot of insecurity there. And I don't know in the dance world if there's this narrative as well, but a lot of yoga teachers telling me that if I stretch enough or if I do more yoga, if I do it every day, if I practice more, then I will be able to do those poses. And part of me felt like is that true? Like, is that possible? Like, would I really be able to do those poses? Because it kind of felt impossible. So that's kind of what got me really into wanting to learn more about anatomy. Is there a similar, like, in what you with your turnout? Was your dance teacher just keep practicing or keep stretching? Was that a kind of the answer they gave you?
Yeah, very much so. So they didn't have the answer. They didn't like maybe have the tools to look at my body anatomically the way I want to look at my students now. So they would just say, well, just practice more and it will be better. But that sends the message to you. You're already in full-time dance training at university. It sends the message that you're not doing enough and that is kind of your fault somehow personally, which, yeah, could if you're in your 20s or, whatever age you are at uni, that will not be an easy thing to carry around when you're
Mhm.
comparing yourself with other people so much. So I guess, yes, that's definitely what happened.
Yeah. And what kind of anatomy continuing education did you go on to take or look for after your 200 hours?
So Alice,
So
who did our anatomy at 200, inspired me actually to go and look at yoga medicine trainings because that's who she trained with. And after the 200 hour and also my dance experience, I still felt like there was so much more I could learn and integrate all the information from different sources. So I went to study with yoga medicine. I did my 300-hour training with them. And those trainings are really cool because they break down the body into modules. And so you can pick the modules that you want to study and you can take your time with them. There's no time pressure to complete the 300-hour in any time frame. So I did 50 hours on the shoulder, 50 hours on the spine, 50 hours on the hip, and then added additional full body anatomy, sequencing, all kinds of trainings are actually available. And they all look at the body through a scientific lens, which is awesome. And they're great at teaching how everything works. So that was the first one. After that, I did yin anatomical variation training for yin. So that was 50 hours just looking at how yin poses and movement more generally is influenced by our anatomical variation, something we'll talk about later. Awesome person based in the Netherlands. She studied with like Paul Grilly. So it's the whole yin community. They're obsessed with anatomical variation for great reasons. And lastly, where we met was Three's Busy Yoga, who apply the science of physical therapy into yoga to help you not only be like a therapeutic teacher and help people with particular issues, but also really to help you see the body really comprehensively in a group class and be able to troubleshoot issues as they arise, sequence more intentionally.
I have heard of the yoga medicine, and they have a really, really good reputation. I think I interviewed several teachers who gone through their trainings, and I've taken one of their training before, but not that one of the anatomy focus one. It was a female health training, which was really good. But I have taken Tiffany Cruikshank, who is the founder of yoga medicine. She has, I think, 50-hour online yoga anatomy training on Yoga International. And that one was really good because she really made it relatable and practical for yoga teachers specifically. And 50 hours, it's pretty quick. You can go through that training quickly, but really good foundational anatomy training. And that training really made me feel more knowledgeable in yoga anatomy or anatomy that's relatable to yoga. And she'd teach it in a way that's so easy to understand and fun to learn. So I would highly recommend, I don't know what it's called, anatomy, yoga anatomy? I don't
Yoga
know.
anatomy, yeah.
Yoga Anatomy on Yoga International website, and it's Tiffany Cruikshank who's teaching it. And that one is probably more shorter and more affordable options for anatomy training out there. So that's a great one to start for people. And another one that I recommend that I've done that is also a short and more affordable option is Libby Hinesley, who is a yoga teacher and later became a physical therapist. And she actually wrote a book called Yoga for Bendy People, and it's about hypermobility. And she herself is hypermobile herself. She had a lot of questions about her body and her pain and injuries that she gained from her years of practicing yoga. And that's kind of why she became a PT. And now she kind of really focuses on working with hypermobile yoga teachers, students who's looking for answers or who's in pain. So she can help better serve them better. But she not only has a great book on hypermobility, that's online trainings on hypermobility for yoga teachers, but she has a really amazing anatomy membership site called Anatomy Bites. And I think it's like 30 something dollars a month, pretty affordable. And every month you get short 15-minute videos, 3 or 4 15-minute videos that you can kind of break up very easily and watch throughout the month that she focuses on what the particular topic of anatomy. So 1 month it could be shoulders and rotator cuff. 1 month it could be hips. 1 month it could be your spine. So she has a very monthly focus anatomy videos, as well as monthly Q&A sessions that you can join on Zoom. And I think it takes about 3 years to complete all of her training she have created that comes out monthly. And after 3 years, you get to have the content for life, which is cool. I've taken Jason Crandall's anatomy online course as well, and he does like injury management stuff online, and that's also a lot of anatomy in it that I thought was really good. I've taken a small shorter anatomy training, weekender training. Smart Flow does include a lot of anatomy. I wouldn't say it's anatomy focused training, but it does include a lot of anatomy in Smart Flow training with Ani Carpenter. And then obviously we both took 3 Fizzy yoga training, which I thought was really cool because it's PT and yoga, trying to bridge the knowledge and the gap in between. And right now I'm actually shadowing a physical therapist here in Long Beach, which is really fun for me to kind of be the fly on the wall, just taking notes. And it's been really, really fascinating and fun for me to learn from PT with zero yoga background. So just kind of being there and observing and learning has been really fun. I love, love, love learning anatomy. So I think those from the list we offered, I hope the listeners can find anatomy trainings that would fit their need or desire. Do you feel like did you feel ready after your 200-hour with your anatomy knowledge to go on and start teaching?
So in my 200s, like I said, I was already have done my dance degree and did my dissertation on science, movement science, and it sort of expanded on that. And I also taught movement for teaching yoga. So I had sort of like a better, perhaps a slightly more confident approach than some of my peers who were really, they talked about it openly. They felt like I'm really self-conscious. I'm not sure if I can do this safely or responsibly with people. So I finished the training thinking that there's a lot to learn. So I think Alice, who was teaching the training, inspired me and showed me how much more there is to learn. So despite having the foundational knowledge from movement and from my dissertation, doing that, I still felt like there was a lot to learn.
Yeah. And in my mentorship program, I do a little survey or application form before people register. And in the survey, I ask, what are areas that you want to further educate yourself in? What do you want to learn more about? And there's like sequencing, cueing, anatomy, philosophy. There's so many options for them to choose from. But by far, anatomy is one of the top that a lot of yoga teachers want. They know that they want to deepen their knowledge on. So I always highly, highly recommend all yoga teachers to continue learning everything, whatever they're interested in. But I think definitely anatomy is something that you can really get into a rabbit hole and start learning so much about. So I think that's really, I always encourage continuing education. But I do want to ask a little bit, your yin training was anatomical variation of yin training. So it was very specific yin training in terms of, it wasn't just yin training, it was anatomical variation,
Yeah,
which
yin
I thought that
anatomy.
was really cool.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
yeah. And the fact that yin already kind of teaches that at forefront. And I almost wish all teacher training taught a little bit more about anatomical variation that I know we're going to get into in the next week's episode, but I love that you already kind of received that training.
Yeah, and I think the standards right now are 30 hours of anatomy and physiology. That's Yoga Alliance, but I think also Yoga Alliance Professionals, which is the UK body. And physiology is a slightly different area of learning. We talk about nervous system, breathing, etc. So anatomy really only gets 15 hours. That's not very much. And I think we often see that the anatomy that's being taught isn't really applied. So maybe you're looking at the images or textbook. This is your femur, this is your quads. Okay, cool. Let's do some yoga now. And there's no carryover into what you're actually doing. And I think what it needs to be better at is actually getting on the mat. And while we're talking about the femur and the quads, let's get into Warrior One and see what's actually happening. Can we feel this eccentric contraction as we go down into our Warrior One? Or can we feel the external rotation in the tree pose? And those kinds of, I think, concepts would be really useful because that allows you to understand movement and speak the language of movement rather than having to be like, what's happening in warrior two, I forgot what's the leg doing,
Yeah, yeah. So true. Yeah. Whenever I'm like a guest teach, or if I'm teaching a 200 hour, or if I guest teach for 300 hour, one of the common like little pop quiz I like to give people is I'll do like warrior two. And I ask, which leg is an external rotation? A lot of people's like they just don't. That's not like applied anatomy is not how they learned it in the 200. So it's so um, important for yoga teachers to continue educating themselves in anatomy, and even if that's not going to be your specialty. I think basic knowledge, and I think knowledge beyond your 200 hour, more than 15 hours in your 200, I think it's necessary for sure. Is there anything else from this topic that you want to share and mention before we close out this week?
Yeah, so like you just said, it's so important to keep learning. And also, even if your education is awesome and you've learned so much, the science to some extent keeps changing. So oftentimes we see very outdated concepts or beliefs about the body that are being passed on. And I think apart from really understanding movement itself, we also need to keep an eye on how the science is evolving and that we're not spreading often misinformation or scary ideas about the human body.
Oh my God, that's such a good point that you brought, because we're like new knowledge is coming out every day. Framework of how we see anatomy, or how we see injuries or prevention or healing is constantly changing. So yeah, I think that's such a good point. We need to try our best to stay up to date on these information, so we're not repeating outdated information. And I think, you know, in the previous miniseries, Karen and I did a miniseries on yoga cues that we used to say that we no longer say anymore. And a lot of those conversation Karen and I had was about older, outdated way of understanding anatomy versus what we know now. So that's why we want to kind of update the cues we say. So that's such a good point to like, we need to keep learning because of that. Like just because you learned anatomy 10 years ago doesn't mean it still applies today. So I think it's so important to keep up to date. That's a great point. All right. I think that's a good intro to this mini series on anatomy. Thank you so much, Olga, for coming on this week. And I'm very excited for next week's conversation on anatomical variation.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Olga about our background in anatomy, what kind of trainings we have done, what trainings we recommend, why we believe it's so important for yoga teachers to continue educating themselves in anatomy. It's always really fun to speak with Olga. She is full of knowledge, and I learn from her every time we talk about anatomy. And it's also really fun to have geeky anatomy chat with fellow anatomy geek in the yoga world. So thank you, Olga, for coming on. I'm very excited to be sharing the next 2 episodes for this mini series with all of you. Like I said, I'll leave the links on the show notes for the previous interviews I've done with Olga, as well as how you can reach and contact her if you wish. And I always love hearing from the listeners, so please message me, ask me questions anytime you wish. My Instagram is at Reika Yoga, ReikaYoga. Or if you don't have social media, you can message me through my website, www.reikayoga.com. And that's the same website for my online yoga studio. I'll put the link on the show notes for that $20 new student special, 2 weeks unlimited on my online yoga studio. I would love to meet you, chat with you, and practice yoga with you. So come check out my online yoga studio. Lastly, if you can leave me a review or rate or subscribe or star or anything you can do from whatever platform you're listening to this podcast from, that would be super helpful. But most importantly, what matters the most is if you can share this podcast with your friends, your yoga teacher friends, your yoga community, or share it on your social media. More people can share this work and spread the work. It will help this podcast so much. So that is it from me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back next week with second of the 3-part mini-series on anatomy with Olga. Talk to you next week. Bye.